What's up, everyone? Welcome to the episode of Moving with Life. This is episode 138. Thank you for joining me. I always mess that up. Not really, not that I mess it up, just I like having good audible pronunciation of words. And sometimes I rush myself, and it's visible on other videos, previous podcast episodes that I've done, where it's like I stop myself because I have to think and then proceed with the word. Right now is joining, just to make sure, I'd like to have that correct, again, pronunciation of the word. But I digress, because today we're going to dive into just some things that I've been thinking about a lot, and things that have evolved from it. There's a couple of videos. So Gary Vaynerchuk, I have mentioned him before. I don't think I've ever brought it, like, his content necessarily to the podcast. I don't think so. In case I have, cool. In case I haven't, there's going to be some not fresh to you, my listeners, but definitely not someone who's not new in the business world. He has, 4 crushing it. He has a new book coming out in November. It's 4 books plus one coming out in November-ish, or in the fall time. I've been following him more heavily since he was on Joe Rogan, and I don't even know what episode that was as far as Joe Rogan's when he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, because I think he's only been on there once, and when I saw him, I got into him, then kind of got out. I'll argue, and listen to him, getting into his content, then getting out, and now I've kind of dove back in. For me, that's a sign for myself saying, hey, if the information is coming back and becoming relevant, there might be something here that I should probably listen to for a little bit longer than I did the first time. I digress. Kind of, not really. I got distracted. So, excuse me. I want to dive into the first video, and the first video will let me then just dive into the topic of the day and my thoughts and processes, and kind of where I'm at with it, because I think it'll make, obviously, with the video, it's going to give context to make sense of what I'm talking about, but then I'll clear up, what's going on in my head and what I've been thinking about in general. So here we go.
A trainer is the fucking greatest gift of all fucking time.
That's what I think sometimes. It just is overwhelming at times, but I hear you. So.
What's overwhelming?
I guess just I'm indecisive sometimes, so I guess it's just.
So get a dartboard in that room.
Yeah.
Put the 2 decisions you're trying to make through, put a blindfold on, and fucking throw the dart. Flip a fucking coin.
I got you.
You're worried about outcomes without realizing the outcomes aren't the interesting part. Going through it is the interesting part.
Yep. Exactly.
Dude, you're blessed.
Yeah.
No, really?
Yeah.
No, you need to go to not the quick I know. If you knew, you wouldn't be on this show asking that question. I want you to go fucking in it.
Gotcha.
There was no part of my life from 11 to 45 that I would have been on the Ask Gary Vee show asking, or the Tea with Gary Vee asking.
And frankly, my video got cut off. That's why I stopped it there. And but the gist of it came out. The gist of what, So this first little. These are 1 minute excerpts from a longer video that gives a more full conversation of this, and then he has another conversation which I take a little excerpt out of that as well. The biggest thing is decision making. I have talked about Jocko's prioritize and execute. I have talked about just making a decision, kind of going through it, and then seeing where it ends up, and then making the next decision on whether to continue pursuing it or moving on to something new. And lately, I have felt like that as well. In this kid's case, I say kid very liberally. Okay, don't get all offended. Whatever. It's fine. But in this particular guy's case, he is a basketball player, maybe collegiate worthy. I'm not sure what his background is. They have his social media kind of posted up there, but I haven't looked into it because it's my information and relevancy is just the overall conversation here with making decisions. And Gary Vee's like, hey, freaking put your two decisions up, put a blindfold on, freaking throw that dart, right? And for me, I've felt that because now that I'm doing what I'm learning a bunch like in the healthcare world, EMT world, EMS world. I I'm looking forward to getting my photography stuff back, which I will get soon. I'm really looking forward to that. Because that's the other part. And if you follow me on Instagram, I've been posting 2 photos for every 1 video, and I'll probably change it up here pretty soon. I went on a pretty good stretch of like just kind of not catching, because again, I'm using my original Instagram that I kind of started with in the very beginning in 2012, summer 2012, around there. So kind of transitioning my current followers and then gaining new followers, losing some, frankly, losing some followers as well, because obviously my direction has changed. I'm not playing music full time. I'm not doing that stuff anymore. I'm not going to gigs. I'm not playing gigs. I'm not going to shows. Okay, that's false. I'm going to shows that I'm able to. I've only gone to 1, so that's where that goes. But when it comes to, I'm not even talking about creating a business. I'm just trying to make a decision on what I want to do next. And not next as in like, oh, I'm gonna maybe stop healthcare or continue. I don't and that's where the issue comes. Is I don't know. I like what I'm doing. I've learned a lot. I also like photography. I also like playing guitar. Or playing guitar, singing harmonies, doing that thing. That's I've been trying to bring some of that content as well to my Instagram and the TikTok. That's what kind of got me back. It's like, man, I should probably just record, me doing it. That's what I like. Maybe it's not very trendy. Maybe it's not, I'm not trying to be a lead vocalist, but I really like harmonies, and I find songs that are relevant to my liking. And or songs I'm like, hey, this harmony is really cool. I want to mimic it, or I want to be a part of it, and just kind of capture the moment. It's a song. Most of those songs that I've been posting on TikTok and Instagram, because TikTok mutes them because of rights and all that other crap. But that's where that's kind of gone. So it's like, man, there's guitar playing, there's a little bit of singing, and obviously background. I like reading. I bought a bunch of books, and I am planning on selling some, because they're books that I found. I'm like, man, some of them seem maybe more on the collectible side. I don't know. But I'm not here to pitch that. Anyways, so I like books. I like having books. I like reading books. And that's only evolved from me finding books or a genre more or less that I like. The majority of books that I own, that I've read all the way through, and I've read multiple times through sometimes, are books that are nonfiction. They're like self-help books, or they're business books, or someone's autobiography or biography giving how they went through their life, whether it be during a wartime, or business as well. I got some new books that I'm interested to dive in. I found an Einstein book. I got it for like 30. I found a bunch of books, and I got them for like 30 cents a piece. And even like the bigger books or whatever. So I found a few collectibles that are more on the business side, like Dale Carnegie, if you haven't heard of him. He's a big one, and I got them all for like 30 cents a piece. It was for me so much intrinsic value. And then there's some other books that I like. The Last Lecture, I think I've briefly talked about on the podcast probably forever ago. But I read that book. It was recommended. Read it. There's a YouTube of the doc that's talking that's the doctor that is that wrote The Last Lecture. That's what it's called. Titled Last Lecture. If you type in Last Lecture on YouTube, I'll make a note. Last Lecture link. I'll put the link in the bio. Anyway, so I have a copy. I bought an extra copy because again, I got it for like 33 cents. And my goal is, if I can't resell it, I'll regift it. Frankly, that book, it's a good read. It's not hard. The print's pretty big. But it's a book that, I hope it would, if you read it or if you've read it or if you've seen the video, I hope that it's balanced you out in the sense of, just kind of brings you back. And that's what some of this podcast is, today's episode is about too. It's like making that decision. In this guy's case, he's 21, so Gary's point is like he's 21, so he can do both at two separate times. So maybe in this case, he can, because he's younger and he wants to be a good basketball player, maybe go that route first, and then if it doesn't work out, but doesn't mean he shouldn't give it his all, then he can move on to being a trainer, but at least he'll have all this experience of like, hey, I did this, I played for this people, I played for these people, I played for this coach, I got to learn this. This was my trainer. This is what I've done. This is what I can do, and this is what I can do for you. Because by then, he'll have some foundation of like, hey, I'm a player, and I can help the next generation. I can help you come up and do this, and prepare this next generation of basketball players. In his case, right? I kind of lost my train of thought, but anyways, I guess to revert back to like books, photography. I play guitar, sing a little harmonies, and it's like trying to make a decision on like, not that I have all the free time in the world, but I have some, and there are moments where it's like, I do want to just play my guitar, so I'm capturing that. There are times that I'm in a good spot and I can take a good picture. And again, getting my photography stuff, I'm really looking forward to what's coming. I don't want to hype it up too much because I want to get my gear in my hand, and that's another thing is like I get ahead of myself, and we're gonna get into the next video here shortly, because I do that too. It's like I have all these. Let's say I have a bunch of ideas, and then because there's so many and there's so many things that do interest me, but at this point it's not okay. What ideas and what things are gonna stick out? Which ones are gonna stand the test of time? So far, this podcast has been one. I stopped, but then I realized that, at least while I'm able to, when I'm able to, I do want to capture these moments where I'm watching. And again, this is kind of transition to like the way I'm kind of doing these episodes now. But these videos that I'm watching, then trying to record this in real time and give you just what my thoughts are. And because I'm in these things too. Like if you're 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, it's like, yeah, just try things. And I guess one thing that I wanted to mention for this first little clip was like, and I have to have mentioned it before because again, this is episode 138. It has to be somewhere out in the interwebs of this podcast. But I changed my degree 5 times. I was a music major, then I didn't want to do classical music because that's what the school had to offer, and I wasn't interested. Fine, it's all good, and maybe I could have probably gone another route within the realm, but I was just so like I had just the blinders were on. So if you feel like you had a plan and then it turns out you're not liking that plan, you don't like what direction you're going, it's just and and it got to the point for me where I was making drastic changes. I was a music major, then I was a kinesiology major. I'm like, oh, what if because my thing was, what if I become a physical therapist, like for the Astros or for the a team in Texas, and primarily I've mentioned this even recently where I really like baseball, and so I was thinking like, man, that would be really cool if I could be a physical, a PT, some type of physical trainer, even like a on-field manager of a range like the Texas Rangers, the Houston Astros, something to that effect. I'm like, so the kinesiology, physical therapy. By that time, my GPA and I'll never forget this because this academic advisor could have probably gone a different way if she actually cared about the student, not just like what's going on. But I mean, I guess you can say, oh, realistic. Whatever. I digress. Let's get back on track. Music, kinesiology, physical therapy didn't work out because at that time she was like, oh, your GPA is too low, so you need this, blah, blah, and I was not interested in trying to stay in school longer than I had to, because that was one thing I also realized too. And Gary's a big promoter of, hey, school's not that important. If you want to pursue something and then you go do it full-fledged. There's nothing wrong with, I've mentioned this, there's nothing wrong with trade school. There's nothing wrong with some type of tech. And it's interesting because even at that time when I was in college, like I was already taking pictures and I was I had started making vines and all, and and I have some of them, and I don't have all of them. I wish I did. They're already posted like on my Instagram and stuff, but um, you know. So, anyways, so yeah, Gary Vee's because for him, he made D's and F's and C's and barely graduated. Went to college for his mom essentially. Didn't work out. But he was already doing his wine business with his dad. And, it's a great story. It really is a great story. Didn't care about my GPA enough to I wanted to retake class. No, I'm not trying to stay in school any longer than I have to. Physical training. So I stayed in kinesiology, switched over to physical training, and within that, because their goal was not only to teach you, how to personally train somebody else, there were some business academics that were necessary because the idea was hey, you're going to build a business out of you being able to physically train somebody. Mind you, if I would have had the mind or the thought, this was 2011-ish, pretty much that whole year, because I was going through school, but I was just not interested in some of these things. So I took a personal finance class because personal finance is going to help you figure out how to manage your finances. That was kind of the goal. And then I took a intro to business class, and I'll say Dr. B. I still remember him. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know if he's still teaching there or not. But I ended up. So he was one of the professors that I took as many classes as I could. So I took him for intro to business. I took him business comm. What was another one? I took at least 3 classes from him, which is pretty significant when you're in college because obviously, you only usually it's one professor and you're on to the next thing. And when you're in, then you get to your core development classes of whatever thing you're trying to learn, and that's it, right? I got lucky. So again, I took him for intro to business, and this was just everything. It was management, economics, finance, accounting. What else? International business, which then I had taken an international business class anyways. But anyways, it gave it just a full scope. And Dr. Blanco, and I think I have some of his mannerisms too when I use my hands and when I'm talking. It reminds me, because again, I took him for business comp, so I learned a lot of these things from him. And then he had us do a lot of things to build our communication skills. And I feel like I did take that in, right? So anyways, so when I took his class, and then the personal finance class is Dr. His name was I won't say his name because it's just for privacy's sake, and anyways. So my personal finance class, he just made it fun. He even at this time, this was because I think they were doing those SUV buybacks, they were buying buyback the feds or whatever, whoever were buying back Ford Excursions, the big ass Ford SUVs, buying back Hummers. They were doing all these buybacks to preserve on fuel, and he had a Hummer, and he's like, you know what I do with my Hummer? And we all thought you save gas, so you probably don't use it. He's like, no, I drive the hell out of that thing. He was this guy from, I'm guessing he's from West Texas. He was always in a button-up shirt, tucked in belt, no buckle, but belt, jeans and black boots. That was his wardrobe for class. And but he's like, no, why would I have it parked if I own it, if I buy it? And you think I feel safer in that, or you think I feel safer in? I think he's probably brought up Mini Coopers and some of these smaller cars and EVs. At that point they were very new. And he's like, no, I drive the hell out of that thing. No, why would I have it parked if I'm already paying for it? So having his animation, learning from Dr. B, I was like, you know what? I think I should be in business. So that was my 4th change. So I went to general business. I was like, I don't know what I want to do within business. But I think a business degree would be good. I have Dr. B. I almost said his name. I have Dr. B. I took this class from this personal finance class. I'm like, I think that's what I can do. So I remember texting my parents hey, I'm changing my degree again, but I think this one makes the most sense for me, and not because I'm actually interested in starting a business. I'm just interested in the topic. I'm interested to learn from more from these professors, if I'm able to get them to teach more classes, or if I'm able to be a part of the classes that they teach. So I did that. Started taking general business. Then I had to start taking certain specific accounting classes, and taking the regular core business accounting classes was enough for me. And I was like, oh, I'm not doing that. I need to actually. Luckily, one of my professors, I don't remember who said this, but they did suggest, hey, if you're a general business major, you should probably find a niche. We'll call it a niche. That's probably new age, but at the time, she's like, you should probably find not spec- a specific. It is a specific major, but she didn't use that word. I can't think of the word. But essentially she said, you should find a specific topic that you want to dive into. That's what she suggested. It might have been my business cow class, Mrs. T, or Dr. T, probably Dr. T. Yeah, maybe that would make more sense. Anyways, so then did that, and I was like, why did I jump into management? I think I took a leadership. So I think at that point I was able to also take a leadership class, and I also found some very cool people there. When I took that, because I know who the doc was, I know who the professor was, but there's 3 gents, and 2 of them I remember I remember one's name, and then the other 2 I don't remember their names, but I remember them. Period. They were veterans. This was 2000. By this time it was 2012ish, late 2012, probably most likely. But the summertime of 2012, and it's funny because at that time I was starting into the music industry and playing music, trying to land a gig, a paying gig. But those guys they were so honestly they were so accepting, and I was like, man, this is cool. The vibe was cool. I like what I was learning. I remember the classroom, but I don't remember what class it was. It was a business class because we were all in the same little graduation group. We all graduated at the same time, the same day, more or less. With the spring I graduated in the summer. I walked in the summer, but I graduated like the summer one. But I remember them being accepting, and I think that just helped because now I found a group that we were learning the same things, we're interested in the same things. They had obviously their stories, and they didn't dive too much, but they were able to use some of their leadership, the things they learned, the leadership skills they had learned being deployed. And mind you, this is 2012, so they were most likely part of the 2006 push. I think 2 of them were Army, 1 was Navy, but they were part of all the pushes, probably leading up to 2010 is probably when they got out, more or less. That's my guess. I think even 1 was gonna go back in once he got his schooling done, and I'm pretty certain about that. Anywho, there's a freaking story that would piss me off. Anyways, I just remember about a story. But anyways, and then so I was like, oh, how can I take more of these leadership classes? Like, what does that mean? It's like management. I said, okay. So technically degree change number 5 was my dive into management, emphasis on leadership. So I got to take a bunch of leadership classes. I got to take, obviously you have your general business, that core that you have to take, but the meat of my business courses were, leadership driven and communication driven. So, and some of the classes actually had the word management in them. Like I think it was international management. So that one was pretty cool because the projects, we got to do mine was particularly like on cruise lines and doing research on that and how those ships kind of work. And right now I don't remember. I'm not, no, but I just remember doing the research, like, some of that stuff was interesting. So that was degree change number 5. And how I got into this was the fact of, so let me just wrap this up because I actually went way over time than I was expecting to, but it's fine. Making decisions. I had to change 5 times, and I happily and willingly share that all the time, especially when I hear people that they're in a funk, or they're doing something they don't want to do, or they think they have to go this route because of whatever external factors, whether it's parents, family, whatever. They have this sense of like, oh, I have to do this because this person wants it. It's like, well, a little bit, but if they're taking, you should probably take some for yourself too. So there's a little piece of my history of, I changed my degree 5 times because that's what it took for me to find something that I actually was willing to just stick it out, and not quit college. And again, I learned so much. I want to dive back in, so we can at least do this last excerpt. We have about 10 minutes or so to go. This other clip, it's only a minute long as well. But yeah, so decision making. So it's okay to change. But even if you change your direction, there are some things that hopefully you've learned along the way in that journey, that process of going through those changes and meeting different people and doing different things. Maybe you're not even meeting different people, but just doing different things, learning different techniques, learning different, not characteristics, learning different, not habits, learning different methods, learning how to, learning how to critical think, learning how to develop things that you learn and maybe add them to whatever you're doing next. Okay. Let's move on to the next one.
This is about not beating yourself up and knowing where your intent and your efforts are, and also knowing life's a long game. So in 2-3 years, when I'm taking my kids on business trips and traveling with them and showing them the world, like, that's where the benefits have come from some of the sacrifices. And I don't know, I think everybody, if they had the option of, would you rather have had your parents around every minute from 1 to 5, but not be able to do all these amazing experiences with them from 11 to 18 versus the alternative? I just have a funny feeling all of us would raise our hand and say, I'll take that 11 to 18 shit. And I plan on dominating that, and some of the sacrifices I have to create between 1 to 8 is something I'm willing to do, and that's my strategy, and I don't give a fuck if some parenting blogger says that I'm not spending enough time with them. Fuck you.
Thank you.
Let me come
Thank
and
you very much.
let me come and judge you from afar. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the point of that one is judgment. And I think I can make this one 7 minutes, quick in the 7 minutes that we have left. Because the way I've associated, and I've thought a lot about this, that enough to where I'm like, I need to talk about this because this will give, thank you for getting this far with me in this episode. But judgment has been a creation that I've made in my own head without anything even existing yet, or without it even existing, period. So creating stories in my head that there's this outcome, and and Gary Vee talks about in that first clip where you're worried about the outcome before you even like do anything, and I was gonna say, oh, back at this point, but no, even lately, I can say lately right now, over the past few weeks, and diving back into this specific material, and realizing, oh yeah, I am scared of judgment, and the possibility of being judged and having that criticism has stopped me from producing more, trying more, being more spontaneous as far as like TikTok and these other social media sites, because I do I feel it now as I'm talking to you. It's like, yeah, I do feel judged. So it's like, I don't want to post that, because what if someone says something about me? What if someone laughs at me? I'm like, man, it's true. What if someone laughs at me? Well, that's okay, because it should be okay. Because depending on the person, it doesn't even completely matter. Especially if it's someone that doesn't actually know me, even though I'm they see that 1 minute clip. I try to keep it to a minute, because at least that's the maximum time that I'm allotted on the social media site. So like I try to maximize that minute. I'm not worried about cutting it down to like a 30-second or a 10-second or a whatever second. If I can get my 60 seconds and just have a decent point, have some type of value in that minute, then I'm good with it. But then there are times because I think of Vines I had done. I think about the vlogs I had started. I think I did 75 in a row before I stopped. I think my goal was 100, and I didn't reach the 100, back to back. I was doing vlogs every day, and at that point, I was actually just running out of. In my head, I was just running out of things to say. I felt like I don't have anything else. I don't know what else to. And I was getting tired. I was getting burnt out, and I'm trying to get away from that word burnt out, because I'm trying to let it evolve and helping me grow as a person, so that when we're interacting in person, or if I'm at work, or if something happens that would usually piss me off, and I just, I don't divert, or avoid the situation. It's just like, okay, try to keep collected so I can solve the problem, or move on, or help that person that, actually they're the ones going through the problem. They're just exerting that energy, that negative energy on me, or whatever situation may be. There's a bunch of possible situations that could happen. But ultimately, to wrap up today's episode, is judgment, and I was getting so comfortable with just having a camera up and doing these things, and obviously I stopped for basically 2 years because of things were changing. I was learning new skills, learning new things. That was the gist of that. But in trying to get back into that mode now of creativity, that I realized, like, hey, like, this is something that I do want to do. I want to continue this podcast. I want to take more pictures. I want to learn how to edit better. I want to learn how to relevant to the podcast, but I want to speak. I do want to speak, but I want to learn how to write well. I feel like I write a decent amount, but I don't know if it's good or not. I don't blog often, because a lot of things that I write about are personal. I think they will come to light. I think they will come to light eventually, just not yet. It's not the judgment factor. It's just like, no, it's just stuff that's on my mind right now that I use the writing as an outlet, and I put it away, so that when I come here and I think about judgment, I think about other things of the positive parts and the creativity parts. It's like, okay, how can I build that? And keeping and staying optimistic when I meet people that are jaded with their jobs, and I meet people that hate their jobs, or I meet people that they don't know which direction to take. I don't know either. It's like, but what I do know now, even as I'm turning a page, and we'll get to that day, in November, as I'm turning my next page, it's like, I don't know either, but we should do something. We should be just a little bit more proactive. Just be a little more proactive, and let the judgment come, and just blow it away. And and it's not easy. I'm bringing this today because, that's the moral of today's episode. And Murphy, I can bring up Murphy's law, where it's like, anything bad that can happen will happen. And in the movie Interstellar, the little girl, she's like, why'd you all name me Murph? It's so bad, et cetera, et cetera. And Matthew McConaughey's like, no. Murphy's law is anything that can happen will happen. And I don't remember when it was, but I remember hearing that for the first time, and I was like, oh, that changes for me, that changes everything. And whether I've mentioned it on this podcast or not, I can mention it again. It's like, if we think about it, about Murphy's law, in the sense of, because I haven't even looked it up, but the point is, like, instead of thinking anything bad that can happen will happen, if we change that to anything that can happen will happen, then that just leaves you with a room of possibilities. Now make the decision. Now move forward. Now, when you get to the end point of that decision, do you want to continue? Do you want to change? Cool. Either way, you make that change, or you make that change, or you keep going, and then you're done. So yeah, don't be scared to make a decision. Stick it out. Now there's a balance there, because you should fight for that decision. You should make sure you do everything you can to not seeing that decision through. And I'm gonna have to keep going, because I feel like I have, because it's just normally I'd stop at the 34-minute mark. I usually stop, but I'm just gonna keep going for a little bit longer. I don't know how much longer, but the point is, because there's a balance. You have, if you're gonna you finally decide, hey, like, we can use this guy as an example. Hey, so again, he decides, you know what, I need to see if I can be the best. I need to work on being the best basketball player I can be, because I want X, Y, and Z. Whether it's making it to the NBA, whether it's playing international ball, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But as long as at the end of the day, in 10 years, or 5 years, or 20 years, or 2 years, whatever may be, as long as he gets to that point of like, if he ever gets to a point of I'm done with this part, or as he's going through he's like, oh, I actually do want to do that. Hey, sir, how can I do what you're doing? How can I train? So I'm using him as an example. But as long as you get to that point of like, you know what, I'm good. I'm done. There's no more. I've done this for, okay, in my case, my personal case, I've done it for 6 years. And now you want to see me gig? Now you want to go to see this and, oh, it's so good. And, and again, there's some underlying things here where I experience where it's like, I've been doing this for 6 years. And some people made the gig, some people didn't. A lot of the people that are important in my life got to see me play at least once, and that's it. No more. There's no more. I've gotten a couple of texts lately, like, "Hey, man, what are you up to? You are you gigging? Do you want to gig?" And I'm like, honestly, I have no interest. Not right now. I don't. I don't have interest in I definitely don't have interest in traveling for work. Probably because I do that already. I do that already technically. But it's like, no, I couldn't. I'm not going to be able to give you my full attention, so I don't want to jeopardize whatever you have going on. That's basically been my end state lately. It's like, yeah, I gigged, I did it, and I got to a point where it's like, you know what, I for now, and even now, this is, I stopped in 2018, so 3 years later, it's like I'm still have minimal interest in going back to that life. Will I want to go back? Maybe. Will I play a local gig whenever it pops up, in 3 years from now? Maybe I will too. Maybe I will do that. But I'm not there yet, and that 3 years is way down the road to give in. I'm not trying to make any commitments or promises, or even I'm not even making thoughts, because I'm trying to focus on now and how I'm building and things that I do want to do. Photography, continuing the podcast, evolving the podcast, having more conversations, eventually going to see friends and family again. But until then, it's like, yeah, that's done. So, making decisions, being good with, you know what, I did give my best, I gave my all, and it's time to move on to something else. And then you do that, and that's where I'll stop this conversation, because I only went a few more minutes longer than I normally do, but it was just there's just a balance to making decisions and then avoiding the judgment, and even judging yourself. We'll probably talk about. I'll probably bring that up, another time. I think I've brought up, vaguely here recently too, but where it's like, you shouldn't judge yourself so harshly either, right? Just make sure you're at a point in your life or in that situation where, like, I'm done. I'm going to move on, try something else. I'm going to move on, and I need to do other things too, and I'll stop blabbering now, and we'll be on our way. Thanks for joining. I was, depending on where we were with time, I was like, oh, well, should I do some, like, look up some, like, current events or news or whatever. It's like, yeah, we didn't, which I'm happy, because that when I get to this place in the podcast episode, it's like, okay, cool. We accomplished I accomplished what I wanted to get done for this episode. Didn't need, like, any, like, sub content of, like, oh, what else is going on. It's like, cool. All of this is relevant. Make decisions. Support your decisions. It's not a bad thing to have a team. Build a team. Have some encouraging people that are on your side. Not just yes men or yes women, but people that actually want you to succeed. And if you don't have those, you can, or maybe you should consider, finding those people that will have your back. And sometimes it's just a circumstantial situation where it's like, hey, they will have your back in that business or changing degrees or changing jobs, changing careers, whatever it may be. So you can find me on Instagram at Andy_MWL. TikTok's the same. Considering making a Facebook again. We'll get there when we get there. I mean, it's gonna happen. I just don't know when. And I'm not in a rush. You know, I had a Facebook before, and I deleted it, and I deleted it. I was actually able to verify that it actually deleted completely. So it's pretty cool that, you know, it erased. So this new one, whenever it comes up, it's going to be brand new. And hopefully further the conversation further better. So I'll let you all go enjoy your rest of your week. It's a Thursday. By the time you see this, it'll be today's Thursday. It'll be Thursday, Friday. Enjoy your weekend, and then we'll see you all next week, and then go from there. Thank you. Oh, last thing, because I should have written this down like I normally do on the top of my page, but take care of yourself, mentally and physically. Take care of your teams, lead from the front. Take care of your household. And we'll see you all next week.